It's the meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee of Western District Council on the 5th of November 2020 at 1 p.m. I understand we have one apology for the meeting today, Councillor Bedford. And I believe we have possibly Councillor Timor will join us by stream. Does anyone know if that's good?
Through you, Chair, Councillor Timor has connected you.
We've also got two councillors joining us.
Councillor Neil. Councillor Neil is connecting Royal Zone as well.
Are there any changes to the interest register? I'd like to move that we accept the apology from Councillor Bedford. Second, please. Thank you, Councillor. Are there any changes to the declarations of interest? No. And are there any requests to add any urgent items to the agenda? We now move to the minutes of the meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee on the 6th of August. Has anybody got any changes in the minutes, etc. to those minutes? In the event of not being advised of any changes, I would like to move that those minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee of the 6th of August 2020 are confirmed as true and correct. And second, we now turn to the action list.
Yes. So the terms of reference is the first item on the list. We determined that this needed to come back for a workshop later in the year at the November meeting. So they terms of reference are actually going to be workshopped after this meeting. The Reserve Bank, we had no update at the point this report was written, but since it's been written, we've found out that they're not going to take the no cash forward for the time being. However, our bankers Westpac from March next year will no longer be processing cheques, which will have an impact on us at council. So we're just waiting for Westpac to come and visit, where we'll be getting some more information, and then we'll be able to go out with a comms plan to the community about alternative methods of payment. To be fair, Westpac are one of the later banks to do this. There's other banks that have already done that from March this year, so I think it wasn't unexpected. So the next action item was for the audit management report to be circulated. However, I just need some clarification over which report. I think it was for the last MTP, long-term plan. So we'll get that circulated after this meeting. The risk management manual aligns with the next item on there, which is the risk management workshop. We haven't arranged for a workshop yet because at the time we determined this, COVID was just starting to arise in the community a little bit. So we thought we would wait just to see what happened there, but I think we can probably try and arrange to go ahead in the new year with a workshop on risk. And at that point we'll be able to finalise the manual.
Do you want to discuss anything on the actions?
Through the chair, how many would still use cheques in the community? Quite a few.
Yeah, there are quite a few. Because we only found out late last week, I haven't had a chance to. I do want to go and have a look and see what that number is, but we haven't been able to determine that yet. But there are a fair few cheques that we do receive.
I know through some of the work that I do that in terms of the charity sector and not-for-profit sector, there's still a surprisingly large number of cheques, and that has, there's already some impact. As you said, some banks have already reduced the
So it's just through maybe training and communication we can give them alternative.
Yeah, so once we know, once we've spoken to them, which I believe they're due next week, we'll have some more information. But I think with us, it's the fact that we don't really have a lot of banking facilities here in Hokitika at least, but certainly further down in South Westland. And quite often we get cheques posted to us from South Westland. We do have a facility with the library to actually book a librarian to help people get online, and they are also able to train people how to use the online banking facilities. So we do have some education facilities there that we can promote.
That's great, yeah.
There's been some talk too, I'm not very up to speed with it, around banks combining with EFTPOS machines and having sort of regional, I don't know what they call them, mobile
Not
banking
heard of
services.
this, maybe something that we'll discuss with us next week, but we haven't heard anything from them.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the action list? In that case, I'll move that the action list be received. I'll have a second.
Yes, I second.
So we now move to the staff report. Any formal comments?
Good afternoon, everyone. We would like to take the report as read for the quarterly report and ask through the chair if there are any questions on it.
No, a very comprehensive report, and obviously some quite large sort of variances, but mainly due to timing, isn't it, around some of those funding things that we've received via various shovel-ready things. But yeah, other than that, and our interest to operating revenue is really low, but that's obviously good for low interest rates, so that's good.
I think that's through Madam Chair. That's a combination of the low rates in the market at the moment and lower than budget because we didn't draw down the full amount of debt last year.
That's good. That's all for me.
Very clear, very comprehensive, and gosh, becoming very easy to read, even for Sparky.
Yeah, I actually agree that in terms of the explanations and the confidence of the report, it's really, really good. I have got a couple of quick questions, just points of clarification for me. And one of them was on page 20, where there was a reduction in funding from NZTA. And I wonder, is that a COVID-related thing, or is that because they've actually reduced the proportion of funding they're supplying to certain types of roading? So I'm looking at page 20.
Yeah, I had due to seasonal road works, less road works than in the water. So that really assumption that we will be entitled to receive.
So it's not really, you've not heard anything about them actually reducing the level of subsidy by a small percentage point for a particular type of roading?
No, they haven't. They've not received any information.
And the other things I'd like to comment on is it's pleasing to see the difference between the rate collection between this year and last year is actually very small, and possibly given the impact of COVID, we could expect a larger, greater difference. And really, really good work's been done around data collection, which is just, that's the only comments with it. So that's everybody on the NC report.
Oh, I can second it.
Thank you. And the second item on the agenda is the work plan.
Yes, so what I did when I started looking at this was to look at the terms of reference that we had and try to fit this in with when we plan to have meetings and also when deadlines were due. There's still some work to do on it, but I think for a first cut, it's representative of what we're doing. I also actually look back at what we were using for our previous audit and risk committee and fitted that in with this as well. It's a little bit more detailed than we used to use. But I'm obviously open to any suggestions as to what you would like to see or how you would like to see it.
No, I'm in your hands, Leslie, and happy to study it in detail when it arrives.
Yeah, no, nothing for me. It's good to have a layout of where everything's going. It's good reference. Yep.
I had a couple of thoughts on it. It was almost like one I read in the sense that going to look at the terms of reference in the workshop, and in actual fact, the only plan should align with what we're doing in terms of reference. So I don't know if there was a process to really have a discussion about terms of reference and then we could do them.
Yeah.
That's something we can relate to.
We can certainly add this on with the workshop, yeah, definitely.
I think in the case, that we consider the work being subject to any change between during the workshop.
Yes, that's a recommendation.
Second that.
Just through the chair, we just had confirmation that Councillor Neil will be an apologies to having trouble with the IT systems.
So I'm going to accept Councillor Neil's apology if I someone consider that to
Sorry, I'm just realised, I was just looking through the agenda that there was a verbal update that hasn't actually made it onto the agenda. It was just an update on the long-term plan progress. If we could possibly just discuss that now. Emma has some notes. Emma is project leading the long-term plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This is just a brief update on the progress for the LTP 2021 to 31. To date, we've had workshops with councillors. Councillors have attended, obviously. We talked about the background to the LTP, which was particularly useful for councillors who were new to the process so that they understood what the process is about, what the expectations are, and that it is a council, the document for the council laws, not the staff's document, staff administer it. We've had a workshop on community outcomes, which were a major feature of the LTP, which then involved public engagement sessions, and we had 2 workshops with councillors, the result of which the council adopted community outcomes under the umbrella of the 4 well-beings, and that was at the May meeting, and these will be included and used as part of the LTP process. Councillors have reviewed activity groups and proposed KPIs for the next LTP. And we've had an infrastructure strategy overview workshop, which was led by District Assets, and also discussed preferred ways to consult with the community when the consultation document is available. And going forward, the infrastructure strategy itself is due by mid-November, and that's the very latest date that we need to receive it. If we don't have it by mid-November, that is a risk that it will delay the financial strategy and the revenue and financing policy, and that then puts the entire LTP process at risk of delay. Government has not extended the due date that the LTP must be adopted by. It still must be adopted by the 30th of June 2021. This is different from the annual report process. The government did extend the deadline of that due to COVID-19. They haven't done that for the LTP. Work on the financial strategy will begin when the infrastructure strategy is completed, as this leads from the two strategies together. We've undertaken a review of the assumptions. However, COVID-19 impacts are yet to be fully assessed. We will know more as we go further into the next year. So there may be updates and clarifications to those assumptions based on what we know further. Activity budgets and the review of the fees and charges, which needs to go alongside that, needs to be completed by mid-January so that the CAPEX program and financial forecasts can be completed. I think Leslie would be the best person to give you a bit more information about that. We've had advice, all councils have had advice from Soldrum that if we have policies in the document that are not needed to be reviewed at this point in time, that we shouldn't be concerned about reviewing them, just review the policies that absolutely need to be reviewed. Auditor General has been extremely clear that climate change must be within this document. It must be addressed, and that they will be looking for that when they do their audits. So at this stage, planning to complete the LTP and the consultation documents, the actual physical documents themselves, is an in-house project. This will reduce costs. IBIS, and as you hopefully have seen from our reporting, is producing really nice statements that can quite easily just be slipped into a Word document or a PDF. So from that perspective, it's should be fairly simple. That obviously will be reassessed as time goes on. But we think that the documents that we've been producing, our annual report, the quarterly report, have quite a professional look to them, and they are done in-house. If there are any questions, or if you'd like to hear anything further from Leslie regarding the financial side of things, through the chair.
Yes, spot on the financials would be quite good.
So we're planning to start, hopefully, preparing budgets at the end of November. This is due to the fact that there has been a bit of a delay getting the infrastructure strategy to us, and driven from that, the financial strategy and then the financing policy needs to be reviewed. We are hoping that we will be able to use IBIS for activity managers to just put their budgets into. Previously, it's been done manually, all put into a spreadsheet, and then we've just uploaded that into the manual system. However, with IBIS, there is a manager portal, so that managers can actually directly put their budgets into the IBIS system, can be reviewed, and then their manager can then approve them, which way it filters through. So there's a review process on it. It's a really good system. We've got IBIS coming to do some training towards the end of November for the finance team. And hopefully we'll be able to train, they'll train the trainers as far as the managers are concerned. But I have seen a demo of it, and it's really easy to use. So hopefully with a bit of support, managers will be able to use it. Most managers will be able to use it. So yes, we're hoping to get the financials completed by the end of January, alongside with those fees and charges, because one filters into the other. Obviously, if you change your fees and charge, that's going to affect your revenue. So in your budget. So the two are aligned, and hopefully we'll get completed at the end of January, beginning of February maybe.
So the IBIS system is really been very positive benefits.
Oh yes, it's a life changer. It's excellent. It's a really good system, and we don't know the half of it, and they're upgrading it all the time. It's a really good system. It's been long overdue.
Just through the chair, I'd also like to give an update on the infrastructure strategy. It's obviously critical for the budget process. We have reviewed all the asset management plans this year, or the activity management plans that feeds into the infrastructure strategy. because of resourcing, we've actually outsourced the infrastructure strategy document. It's been with consultants for quite some time, but they're doing a pretty good review. We've done a peer review as well in that space. So we're almost ready to get it released. And it's one of those things that's holding up the budget process. Alongside that is a review of the capital program that comes out of the infrastructure strategy. It's a changing landscape all the time, particularly when funding is becoming available and also with grants becoming available. So the critical thing that goes alongside this is the cash flow to support the capital plan. So we're working in the background to try and finalise this. We have finalised some of the portfolios of capital plan. There's still a bit of work to do to quantify what they are, and we'll be releasing those to the finance teams by portfolio very shortly. But there's a lot of work alongside this is the Three Waters reform. What's come out of Department of Internal Affairs is a very, very detailed requirements that requires a lot of input, also from finance as well, which obviously is going to stretch resources. We've contracted an external consultant to do most of the donkey work in filling out the spreadsheets, but we'll still need support from finance or finance people. Just found out this morning, Leslie, that DIA are actually providing a finance resource as part of that program as well now.
Excellent.
And also the fact the detailed spreadsheet doesn't need to be filled up by us, but the high level one does, so that's actually even better. So we're working alongside the two other councils on the West Coast to complete that work and together.
So who fills the detailed one with the council? Is that the
Well, using, we've already done a lot of work on the Three Waters reform with Tonkin and Taylor for our own modelling. So that work can also feed into this extra piece of work. So we're going to contract them to complete that space. So Port Council and Grey District Council are going to join us in a three-prong approach to completing that work. Yeah. Huge draw on resources.
Are you comfortable with the timelines to achieve?
The timelines, so I've already raised this concerns with DIA as a joint reply to the fact that we've got LTP amendments to complete. We've got our own budgeting and LTP, and also the shovel-ready projects as well on top of that. Actually does put severe strain on our resources. Made it very clear that the 31st of January is actually, well, whilst they're pushing it, I'm not sure how many councils will actually achieve it. They haven't moved in terms of their deadline yet. Even though during the workshops that we attended, we said that it's got to fit into the LTP program as well, because it actually puts a lot of strain on us, particularly with Christmas in the middle as well.
Well, that's was thinking actually 31st of January or December or usually it's in January. It's not usually the time of achieving the huge amount because some people are away.
And this year, I think Christmas is going to be a real godsend to staff because none of us have had any time off this year. It's been a full-on year with COVID. Council's work has just trebled, really, hasn't it?
That's right. Shovel-ready projects, Three Waters, our own PGF funding. So it's actually, and obviously trying to execute our own core business has been.
And the other thing that tends to delay things over December, January, it's not just the resources on our side of things. It's actually getting time and responses out of Wellington or whoever.
Correct.
Because they've got people away as well.
Yeah. If you think the shovel-ready project, we applied on the 1st of April. We still haven't started any of them, so it's purely contract. Contracts have been now received, so we're on the way now. The delays have really put strain on us as well, and on the community as well.
Through you, Madam Chair. Leslie, where are the risks from a councillor point of view? I'm thinking of, I can see that November, December, where are the risks for workload for the councillors?
Workload. Not so much for councillors, but council itself, well, by council I mean staff not completing things. I think the LTP, the timing, and it's a knock-on effect. If you don't get something done now, then you're going to miss that next bit and then that next bit. And we've got to consult, and we have to consult for a specified amount of time. The long-term plan has to be audited, so we have to meet those deadlines, otherwise we'll never be able to meet the deadline of 30th of June, as Emma said. We haven't actually, the OAG haven't extended those dates like they did for the annual report. So it's a risk, and if we don't meet those deadlines, obviously, then that's a report to Parliament, really, is the fact that council haven't met their deadlines. And we want to also have a plan that is sensible. If we haven't got time, there's going to be errors in it, things like that. So there's a risk of it being non-compliant, possibly qualified. And also, I think the biggest thing that I think this time, having seen the way my staff had to work through the annual report, with the delays in audit there, of the audit team, it's the pressure on my staff. My finance manager is off work this week due to those pressures, and Emma's also had to put a lot of extra time in to do that. And of course, you've got to worry about your staff health and well-being.
So is there a schedule of proposed meetings with the councillors?
Yes,
Okay.
Emma has that project plan.
So I'm not sure I have it handy with me at the moment, but there will be meetings around the consultation document. There will be meetings about the budgets that managers are putting together. There may be further meetings around the finance strategy itself, depending on if there's many changes to that. Those are the ones I can think of.
Right.
I think the main thing around the financial strategy is going to be affordability for us, really.
Yeah.
And also the unknowns around the three waters, because that's going to have an impact on our long-term plan, but we don't know how, because we don't know what the outcomes are going to be. So there's a lot of unknowns going into the long-term plan.
Just in regards to the three waters reform, the direction from DIA is that we don't take into account any changes to the three waters as part of the long-term plan. So we just build it for business as usual. Yep. No changes in that space. But we have to mention, that as a future thing to consult on.
Which potentially, dependent on what they want to do, and it'll be the same for all councils, it's potentially a long-term plan amendment. It depends how they will want to work that, or when they plan to have the actual finalised reform, I suppose, yeah.
And through you, Madam Chair, the thing that I'm focused on at the present time is the fact that there will be significant government assistance in lots of different areas, because there will need to be over the next 12 months, and ensuring that we have that locked or indicated in our LTP.
So through the chair, so we talked to Leslie briefly about this morning. Whilst we've got our capital program, we also have to make some assumptions around the likely internal grants or funding. So it'll be an assumption more than a guarantee right now. So we've actually got a lot of grants recently where we've had no revenue line in the budget. So we've got to tie that in with our future aspirations. It's
Mission impossible, isn't it?
yeah. So that is quite hard to quantify, particularly when these the funding opportunities come up quite randomly. There's no clear program of when they're coming up. We just see them come up and we should apply for those. Particularly around community facilities and infrastructure, that's the hardest one to pull together. And that also includes so much extra work to quantify what that could be and getting those applications developed and submitted. Once again, we've used external resourcing to do that in the past, but if we don't get the funding, that's a cost to council to do that.
We talked this morning that with what's happened with COVID, and it's fantastic to have this money coming to us. It's overtaken BAU, so all this project work has overtaken what we do on a daily basis, because we have specific deadlines to be able to receive that money to get these projects completed. So it really does overtake everything else.
And it potentially rolls back into performance measures, because if you're doing a project work, you're not doing BAU, when you fail performance measures, and that starts another project.
Yes, that's right.
Well, you do see the drop off in performance because some of our, I suppose, contractors are building new things rather than maintaining other things that was part of it. So they've only got limited resources as well. And some of the smaller projects don't get done because they're doing the bigger projects. And they're also chasing the money.
So once again, through you, Madam Chair, the thing that I'm looking at and wondering how we're going to achieve is our finance section's looking after probably $20 million worth of revenue last year. This year it'll be 35 probably.
So more, yeah.
Yeah, maybe more. And the staff numbers are the same. How does that work?
Through the chair, we have increased staff numbers from particularly district assets. We've got a new assets manager. There was a revised position from the previous capital projects manager role, but we've added an additional 2 extra staff into that space.
At the finance section?
So we have now got a management accountant, but really that is a BAU role.
Yeah.
And that is a role which will assist mainly in the fixed assets area, because it's very difficult to have a link with district assets and infrastructure and councils being heavily asset weighted. We need that link in there to ensure that we're getting all the right information and supporting DA as well. But yeah, I am concerned about the transactional team in finance, because we all know that when district assets get busier and other areas of council get busy, everything else gets busy in finance and IT. IT are holding their own at the moment. We're doing quite a bit of work in that area. We are looking for efficiencies, firstly, before and perhaps using technology to assist, rather than first and foremost saying we just need another resource. So we're looking at what we can do that can automate some things, make potentially a little bit more customer self-service down the line. That's a project that's on at the moment, so that we can free the staff up to actually do the important work.
One other important point to note through the chair is the amount of reporting required that comes out of these government projects. So some of them are down to weekly reporting, on current status and how, particularly around the social aspects, how many people have been employed, particularly around COVID, etc. So that's adding a lot of burden to the district assets team particularly.
It's a lot.
In terms of the reporting, and I know that what we've talked about and the staff that we should have a really good idea of reporting days, get it down to weekly, which is rather simple to do that. But in terms of the internal reporting, are there areas, I know we've sort of mentioned this before about finding a balance between being fully informed and not tying up too much staff time. In reporting, is there any area where we can look at that space?
We are obviously through the committee structure providing a lot more reporting through the councillors than we have ever done. The quality of the reporting has improved significantly. We actually done some recent training for report writing as well to improve their skills. But I think we are in a position where we're providing close to the sweet spot in terms of amount. We're not overdoing it, but it does put a lot of burden on to the staff as well to write reports. Once again, without increasing resources, which is potentially something to look at in future space.
I think the internal reporting is fine. I think it's that external reporting that we have to do, and that's actually the biggest chunk of it right now,
That's
isn't it, with all these projects. But the internal reporting, especially because as far as finance is concerned, we've got that IBIS system now, which does help us with our financials. That's a lot quicker, and also we have all our investments are online now, so we can run reports from that without having to do it manually. So in that finance aspect, I'm comfortable with it, but it's everything else around it. Again, goes down to all the extra work. We have to do it because we have to get this money. You know, this is money that we're being given to carry out these works that we would have to burden the ratepayers with if we didn't, but there is a lot of reporting behind it.
Just through the chair, the more we can automate reporting, like this is alluded to, the better. And we are going down ERDMS process, which will help us actually with Laserfish as our client, or streamline a lot of that reporting process as well. So that is obviously will be getting better and better as time progresses, and the more processes we put inside that system.
So basically, even though you've got the project going on at the moment, which you're making, it will be some different benefits. So,
There are a number of processes already in there, probably about 5 or 6, and then we'll just keep adding to those as we go, particularly in the health and safety space. You know, the forms have been developed, and then developing the reports that come in behind that is the next stage.
Automated workflows, electronic signatures, so that we have less printing costs.
Through you, Madam Chair, just one more. Since 2016, there's been a constant flow of projects that have been, in many ways, gifted to council. Is it becoming business as usual?
We have talked about creating a PMO, projects management office, as a permanent structure. At the moment, we sort of have it as a pseudo structure within district assets, but definitely, converting it into a full-time project management function there is a future potential for that. We have got consultants working inside council now doing some of that work. Really depends if it is BAU or if it's going to dry up shortly, because I'm not sure if there's going to be a lot coming out of government in the next couple of years, particularly with the debt level where it's going to end up. So we may see the last of the government handouts. It's already been alluded to in terms of cycleways. The money's going to dry up very quickly in that space. There's potentially enough out there. I'm keeping a close eye on it, worship, and making the call.
if there's no further discussion, I'd like to move that we receive the legal report. Second. And just letting everybody know that the meeting is going to be adjourned for a minute because we're going to be moving into committee, and that gives us time to discontinue the live stream. I'd also like to move that we move into the public excluded session of this meeting.